Everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Emily Miller, and I'm a board member of the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame. And on behalf of Ormhoff, we want to welcome you to Motorsports Sponsorship Do's and Don'ts. And before we get started, as people log on, I just want to give a little introduction about Ormhoff to those of you who might be new to the organization. The Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame is dedicated to educating and inspiring present and future generations of the off-road community, and we do that by celebrating the achievements of those who've come before us. And we also want to inspire those future generations, which is also important to us, and to educate through things such as Live with Legends. And so each year, we induct new members. In fact, the induction process started earlier this year, and currently now the voting committee will go and work really hard to go through all the applications, and then there will be a new class announced this summer. Each year, we have an induction gala, and right now we have 148 inductees to the Hall of Fame. And the gala is open. It is in November. It's just before SEMA, and it is open to the public. So we really encourage you to come to it. It's the biggest night in off-road, and tickets are on sale right now on the website. We also have vehicles. We have curated memorabilia. We have various great content collections, including the Judy Smith collection, the Carrera collection, that are on display and also on digital display. We also have the Ormhoff Registry. So if someone you know, or even your own story, may not be part of the induction process of the Hall of Fame, the registry is there to basically catalog all the great stories from off-road. So we really ask that you take an active role in Ormhoff. You can become a member. We are really on a mission to continue all of the above and invite you to be a part of it. And so we are not just a racing Hall of Fame, we're the Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame. So whether you're from desert racing, from rally, from rock crawling, from two-wheel, advocacy, media, or any other part of the dirt, you really have a place here at Ormhoff. We're also excited this year to launch the Future Legends Scholarship Program, and you'll be hearing more about that. So make sure that you're signed up for our newsletters. That's the best way to do that. So once again, that's at ormhoff.org. So, like we said, Live with Legends is part of that mission to educate. This is the third edition of Live with Legends, and it's really a hot topic. Motorsport sponsorship do's and don'ts has been requested by many of you. And our goal for you today is to really walk away with real helpful information that can benefit you in your pursuit, your understanding, your securing, and your retaining sponsorships. So we've put together a really great panel today that come from a long history of the space of sponsorship in motorsports. And they represent different backgrounds and perspectives from the agency perspective, company, and the athlete and team side. So let me go ahead and introduce them. First of all, we have Andrew Briggs, and you can see the slides up on the screen here. So Andrew is the Senior Vice President of Marketing and Product Management at Yokohama. And so he's responsible for all marketing activities, product sales, finance operations for Yokohama in the US. And this covers consumer from passenger to light truck, commercial, truck and bus, and the race tire divisions. He has 20 plus years in the industry, and much of that has been direct oversight of all motorsport activities and relationships. And he has executed contracts for drivers, teams, venues, classes, and series for both on-road and off-road motorsports. We have Casey Curry representing the athlete/team side. And Casey, as many of you know, is a Dakar champion. He's a 3-time Baja 1000 winner. He's a 2-time short course world champion. And one of the reasons why we have Casey on today and speaking is he does an excellent job as a sponsored racer. And we've had companies that he's worked with for a long period that have gone out of their way to tell us about his dedication to his partners, how he works creatively with them, and how professionally he is as a sponsored athlete. And we have Frank D'Angelo, who is also going to kick off the talk today. And Frank is a 2013 Off-Road Motorsports Hall of Fame inductee. And he's 45 years in motorsports, 10 years with BFG, 25 years at Jackson Motorsports and Marketing, and 14 years with his own motorsport marketing agency. He's built major programs and developed them, including American Thunder, which was a great Chevrolet BFG Mobile One program, the Ford Rough Riders, Toyota BFG program with Greaves and Kincaid Motorsports, and then also Champ. And he's done all areas from supporting athletes, teams, sanctioning bodies, building partnerships, fielding proposals. And he's also now been mentoring and consulting to those, really kind of helping them build sponsorships, including manufacturers who are building programs. So, all three of these people that are on today that you're going to hear from really are absolute experts. Also joining us today is Nate Hunt from BF Goodrich and Brad Lovell from Lovell Racing. The same incredible long histories. Brad as an athlete and a great race team with great sponsors, and Nate for his, and who is also a Hall of Famer who was inducted in 2025. And they're going to be on the chat and responding as well in the Q&A portion. So let's talk about format. So today's format, each one of our speakers will have approximately 15 minutes. And like I said, Frank is going to kick it off. And he's going to do a general overview. And then we're going to move on to Andrew. And while we're doing this, if you look on Zoom, you will see a section that has chat. And then if you look at a section that probably says more on your screen, you will see where it says Q&A. If you can pull that up, you can write any questions that you have. And this is your moment. This is your time to get as much as you can out of these experts. So write your questions there. And you can also write comments in the chat box. That's fine. And you will see that Nate and Brad may be chiming in on some of those questions, but we'll also address those at the end. So let's go ahead and take it away. Frank, you ready?
I think so. Thank you, Emily, and thank you to everyone that's joining us. It's no secret that getting and securing sponsorship is extremely difficult. Um, and one thing there's several things I want you guys to take away today. I'm going to really pack a lot of information in this short 15 minutes. So if I get to rambling, hopefully, Emily, you'll bring me back or someone will bring me back. But in order to get sponsorship, any race team or property that's seeking sponsorship, you need to have a dedicated effort, okay, to go after sponsors or partners. You need to dedicate time and resources towards it. You also need to have an understanding of what sponsorship or partnerships are, why a company would be interested, and then how to go about securing a partnership or a sponsorship in the most straightforward manner possible. Okay. So, number one, there are only three fundamental reasons or objectives why any company is going to sponsor you. Only three. No matter what you say or what reason you give that a sponsor is providing you sponsorship, it's going to fall under one of these three categories. Number one, they want to sell more product or services. Number two, they want to enhance their brand awareness. And number three, technology exchange. They want to gain insight on their product. Those are the only three reasons. So anything that you say about why you got a sponsor, it's probably going to fall under one of those three items. Okay. Let's talk about real quickly what sponsorship is and what it is not. It is no longer just a decal on your race vehicle or on a driver's suit. That's not it anymore. Okay. What sponsorship is it's purchasing the rights to intangibles. And let me give you an example of some of those intangibles. One could be you want to align yourself with the driver for product endorsements. You want to build branding for your product or your company or your service. You want to provide opportunities to maybe host employees or dealers or potential customers for that particular brand. Or maybe a company wants to align with a winner, someone that's always in contention for winning an event, and they want to align their product or their brand with that winner. Okay, those are the intangibles of what a sponsor is truly buying, and there's so many more. There are so many more. So now that we've talked about the three reasons to sponsor, we've talked about what sponsorship is not and what it is. Now we're going to take the steps to how do we go about securing sponsorship? Okay. And there's actually four areas we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about standing out or your niche. We're going to talk about potential sponsors. We're going to talk about selling your program and then maintaining the partnership. Okay. So, number one, in terms of finding your niche, what you need to decide is what can you provide better than most anybody else? What is your little area of expertise that you can give a sponsor? Success on the track? Can you dominate? If you're always in the hunt for that win and you can align yourself with a potential sponsor or partner that's what they're looking for is to be associated with a winner that's really big in the sport, that's fair enough. But not everybody can be a dominant winner, right? So you need to look at other things that you possess that may attract a sponsor or a partner. And I'm going to run through some of those things, okay? Number one, do you have knowledge about something that as a result of that knowledge, you have a following? You have people that follow whatever you do because whatever your niche or whatever it is that you do is something that attracts other people. An example, are you a fitness nut? Okay. And do you talk fitness? Does everybody know that you're a fitness nut? Do you have a following from those types of people? Okay. Is your following on social media platforms? Okay. If you're big into social media, for example, you don't want to just be big at posting, but you want to be big at creating a two-way relationship. So when you go to a sponsor that's looking for social media, that they can see that you're engaged with a ton of people. Um, do you work well with media that's covering the types of events that you do? Do other racers follow you or love you? Do fans engage with you? What I'm saying here is you need to find out what your specialty is or what your interest is. And that is what you're going to try to promote with your particular sponsor. Okay. Um, Let me pause here and look at my notes real quick. Are you someone that is a multi-sport participant? You know, a Toby Price, rally, motorcycle, off-road, a Robbie Gordon. Robbie went from off-road to Trans Am to EMSA to you name it. If you have that as your niche, that's what you want to promote. You want to find what your specialty is and you want to promote it. Are you a vehicle aficionado? Do you restore vehicles? Do you know everything about a lot of different types of vehicles? So figure out what your niche is. Figure out what makes you stand out from everybody else. And it can be something on the track or off the track. Okay. Now let's talk about potential sponsors. For potential sponsors, your best bet is to build relationships. You need to look at who you know, what kind of business they're in, who you know that knows someone that's into a potential business. And you want to align yourself uh, with those types of people and those types of businesses. You want to network via through the people you know, the people that you meet, and the people that you're going to develop new contacts with. You should know a lot about them. You should know where they go. Do they go to expos? Do they go to seminars? Do they do events? What kinds of activities do they do? So you're looking to match up your niche, your specialties of what you do with companies that you are already familiar with. And if you're not, you need to get familiar with them. You need to make sure that as you're building these relationships with potential sponsors, that you know their objectives, you know their goals. Okay. Um, we have Andrew on this panel today from Yokohama. You need to know everything you can know about Yokohama before you ever approach them on anything, because you want to align your niches, your assets, the things that you know a lot about with what they may be looking for. And then build that relationship with the people at that company. So you need to do your homework. And in doing your homework, you want to know the company's objectives and goals. You want to know other activities that they're involved in or other activities that they support. You want to know the contact information on how to reach out to these people and how to start building that relationship. Okay. Um, I can't stress enough how important it is to learn about the company you're about to approach and to see if what they do and how they do it aligns with something you have to offer that is your niche or something that you are very, very stand out on. Okay. So then you need to move forward to selling your program. Okay. And you need to, number one, start developing a plan on how you're going to bring them value. It can't be just the fact that you're running a race or you're running an event. Okay. It needs to be so much more. It needs to bring value to them in a way that they can't get from very many other people. Okay. So again, that uniqueness. You want to align yourself with a brand and your program with their objectives. So, again, I told you to do your homework. You need to find out what their objectives are, what their goals are. And, those goals and objectives can change from time to time. We've seen it used to be a lot of advertising, a lot of print advertising and commercial advertising and radio advertising and so forth. Well, now social media is the big boom. So, again, you can't just be a contributor to social media. You would have to be a leader in that, and you would have to know that that's one of their main focuses at this point in time. So build your proposal tailored to meet that potential sponsor's goals and objectives. Um, Prior to sending off your proposal, you should have the following in place. You need to know and understand their interests and goals, as I've mentioned. But more importantly, you need to have built a relationship. If after a company, I want to know who I'm talking to, know what their goals are, know the direction that they're going, and figure out if I can bring them some type of way of getting what they're looking for. And I want to actually become friends. I want to learn a little bit about them, what they're doing, why they're doing it, how they're doing it currently, and then how I could also help them do whatever it is they're looking at doing. Um, so you should know and understand their interests and goals. You should have built a relationship with this person. And by building a relationship, I recommend you've talked to him two, three, four times. Okay. Maybe during those conversations, you're kicking ideas around. If it's a company that is real big on hosting people at events, the type of events that they're hosting at, what types of people are they hosting? Is it their customers? Is it their employees? Is it VIPs in the company? And then what type of event could you put on for them or host them at that would be very unique, that would be different than maybe anything they can get anyplace else? So you want to dive deep enough into what they're doing and how they're doing it so that you can then ask them, hey, would you guys ever be interested in going to Baja or going here or having your guest come out here? Or what do your dealers like to do? What do your customers like to do? All that type of information you need to be fully aware of and have so that as you're building your package to send to them, you're really focusing and targeting on their interest and what they want to do. I would go so far as to find out, and I'm going to use Andrew again as an example. If I'm chasing him and learning about Yokohama's sponsorship programs and things like that, um, I'm also going to want to find out what his interests are. Let's suppose he's a big fisherman, and let's suppose he's thinking about sponsoring or coming out to a shop or coming out to see what I have going on. At the same time, I might set up a 2 or 3 hour fishing trip for him so that when he comes out and he's looking at the business opportunities that we have, I'm also taking an interest in something that he personally likes to do. So, again, building that relationship is going to go a long way in selling your program. Okay. The proposal needs to be tailored to that company, to their needs. Okay. No shotgun approach. There are so many people that will go hire someone to put together a package that's a general package, and then you send it out to 100 different people. Guess what? You're wasting your time. That used to be a way to do it, but it's not anymore. You need to find out what they're looking for. Why would you send a package with a bunch of generic things that I'm going to put your name on a race car or a driver's suit? I'm going to win races. I'm going to get in the media. Everybody can say that. Again, go back to what I said at the beginning, find your niche, find out what you do better than most people, and include that into what you're going to propose or pitch to that person or that company. Okay, let's talk about maintaining partnerships. When you get a partnership, as you're finalizing that partnership or sponsorship, there needs to be an agreement. Well, one of the things I like to do, and this is really good for having a potential partner or sponsor understand, hey, this person really knows what they're doing here. One of the things you want to do is you want to get them to talk about, let's have partnership goals. What are your goals for this program? And then write those down, put those in writing, know what their goals are for that particular program. Is it race wins? Is it being in media? Is it being on social media? Is it hosting events for their customers or dealers? Find out what their goals are and write those goals down. Continue to follow up during the year on how you're doing with meeting that sponsor's goals. Again, you've built this relationship, so hopefully you're comfortable enough with picking up the phone and going, hey, just wanted to catch up. 4 months have passed. I've done 4 events for you. We've done this, and this. How's that working for you? Is there anything I need to tweak or change? Again, you're building a relationship, you're building a partnership. So you must stay close to them. When they send that first check or that product that they're sending you, it's not great. I got my product, now I can go race. No, you've got to continue the relationship. You've got to show them what you're delivering for them. Okay. And then deliver more than what you promised. If you're promising X amount of social media or X amount of race coverage or X amount of wins, deliver more than that. Show them that you're delivering what you guys had agreed you're going to deliver, but you're doing it in spades. You're doing so much more than what they ever expected. Try to involve your sponsor or sponsor representatives whenever possible in your events, in your race events. Invite them out. Invite them to use the events that you're doing to bring other people out. Go to special events that they may be doing. If they're doing a big show, do they need you? Do they need your help? And if the answer is no on all those, you may want to show up anyways, just to show them that you're there for them if they need you, and that you're involved in what they're doing as a business, and thank them for being involved in what you're doing as a business. Um, and finally, I want to talk about having a dedicated person to gather the data and provide the information for the program. If you think you're going to sit down at the end of 6 months and come up with all the great things that you might have done and you're going to do it by memory, no, no. You need to have someone that's dedicated to doing that kind of information and that kind of data for your potential sponsor. Okay. Um, you need to keep them updated on, uh, hey, remember our goals. Here's some of the elements in our goals. Here's some of the social media we're doing. Here's the race coverage that we included in those goals, and here's what I'm delivering. So you want to go ahead and make sure that you're following up with them and staying in contact with them. So that was a really quick here's what it is, here's what it's not, here's why they sponsor, and then how to go about it. Now what I want to do is just take a few minutes and I'm going to run through some programs that I put together and why they came together and why they were so successful. Okay. First one we're going to talk about is American Thunder. For some of you, most of you that aren't as old as I am, may not remember this program, but let me tell you what happened. This was back in the early 80s. In the early 80s, BF Goodrich decided we don't need OE business. And they pulled out of OE being original equipment. They pulled completely out of it. There was not much profit for them in it, and they thought they could do just fine without it. So they pulled out. After a couple of years, they went, wow, that was a mistake. And they tried to get back in. They went knocking on Detroit's doors and saying, hey, can we get back in? Can we bid on stuff and on bid on projects to sell you tires from an OE standpoint? Guess what? They shut the door. The door was shut. So BF Goodrich came to upper management and said, we got a problem. Problem is, we need to go back and get some OE business. Anybody have any ideas on how to do that? We'll take any ideas. We want to move forward. Well, I kind of always thought outside the box. So here's what we did. And at first, they were wondering, wait a minute, you just like to go racing. That's why you're proposing this. But it worked out really well. And they were right. I did like to go racing. What we did was I got to be good friends. I built a relationship with a gentleman at Chevrolet. And we talked about, wouldn't it be cool to have Chevrolet and BF Goodrich put together a program with two stars, and the stars was Frank Scoop Vessels and Larry Ragland. Let's put together a two-truck program. Let's bring in Mobile One and throw all the money in a pot. Chevrolet, you can do the advertising, and we're going to go racing. And that's exactly what we did. Well, BF Goodrich looks at that and says, well, how does that sell tires to OE? After one full year of success, Chevrolet is excited, Mobile One's excited, BF Goodrich is excited with the racing program. And so I threw out an idea, which was stage two of this plan, to my Chevrolet contact and said, hey, you guys just launched or getting ready to launch a new Chevrolet S10. Why don't we do a Baja edition? They love the idea. Well, guess what? You can't do a Baja edition of American Thunder without having BF Goodrich tires on it. BF Goodrich all of a sudden gets back into OE by supplying a unique vehicle. Okay. That was one big program and reason behind it why we did it. Let's talk about Greaves Kincaid. After I left BF Goodrich, I had my own motorsport marketing company. I was doing sponsorships for various race teams. BF Goodrich comes to me and they're doing short course racing and they're dominating in the desert and doing pretty good in short course racing. But Dan Newsom, who was running the program at that time, comes to me and says, Frank, I'm getting my butt kicked in the pro light division of Champ Off Road. Who's kicking your butt? Goodyear is. Art Schmidt. He's winning 2/3 of all the races. I can't have that anymore. I need an effort. Okay. So I go and put together a program with Johnny Greaves and Jeff Kincaid, who are just coming into Pro Light. Okay. Got Toyota to come on board. Go back to Dan Newsom and said, Dan, here's our team. Took it one step further. Jeff Kincaid knew the Potawatomis. We went and sold them on the program. And I'm going to divert just a little bit from the main objective of me telling you this to tell you a funny story about this. So I put together these packages, and we want the Potawatomis to underwrite a lot of the cost of this program. And I go to them with presentations, and I'm thinking, man, I know what I'm doing. I'm making things happen. And I go to the Potawatomis, and 3 or 4 times, Jeff and Johnny arrange a meeting with me to go sell them a sponsorship. Come away from it, and it goes quiet for the next month or two. Well, there's something wrong here. I'm not getting through. What do I need to do to get through? So on the fourth try to go up there, I took no presentations, nothing. The only thing I did, I went and I had some boards made up that showed what drivers' uniforms would look like, what the race vehicle would look like, how they could sell T-shirts and give T-shirts away in their casinos, how they could get some of their people involved in the racing program. And I went in, gave them the same spiel I'd given them 3 other times, but the only thing I used was a graphic. I'd hold up a graphic and say, you guys can give these away at your casinos. This is how the truck will look. This is how the drivers will look. And we ended up getting them on board. The next 2 years, the Toyota Greaves Kincaid program with BF Goodrich won like 15 out of the 16 races. It was a huge success. Okay. But there was a need there. There was BF Goodrich needing a top team in that division to go out and compete and quit getting their butts kicked. Goal achieved. Okay. Again, you need to find out what that company needs and then develop that program to meet their needs using your expertise or your niche. Let's talk about the Ford Rough Rider program. Most of you are old enough to probably remember that program. Uh, Dick Landfield, a big, big, big Ford dealer, goes to Ford at a time when Ford trucks and SUVs took off like there was no tomorrow. All of a sudden, they're selling them faster than they can build them. And Dick Landfield says, you want to lead this charge. You want to be the lead in the light truck SUV market. Let's put together a super program. Real quick. Fine. Who do we go to? Who puts it together? How do we do it? Ford had 2 other marketing agencies they were working for. Dick Landfield pointed him towards me and said, this is a guy that knows off road. Put a program together, won the bid. What was the bid? It was BF Goodrich came on board right away. Ford was on board right away. We ended up having Texaco Havoline come on board. We had a product like Pia lights. They were just coming into the country. Okay. Perfect company to go and say, hey, how would you like to be on a major program that's going to have marketing, it's going to have advertising, it's going to be everywhere, and they're going to win. They're going to be in the winner's circle all the time, also. It was the perfect fit for Pia Lights. We also went to Alcoa, who is looking at getting involved. Again, we were doing our homework. We were looking at the types of companies that needed that reach, that needed that relationship. And so we packaged the program to be able to incorporate that. So I don't know, Emily, if I've reached my time limit. I've been
Fine.
going as fast as I can, but how we doing?
We're good. We're on time. Need to kick it to Andrew, but I think Frank, this is great. I really gave Frank a tall order to kind of set the stage for just real straight talk. And I think some of the things that I know I took away is, for one, and Nate Hunt made a really good point in the chat. You build a relationship with people, even if they say no to you, even if they don't sponsor you, because you don't know what the opportunity is in the future. And you've got to play the long game. I think sometimes people don't want to be patient. They want, sponsorship right now. But you do have to be patient. You have to take time. You have to be creative. I was thinking about when you were talking about events people are going to, companies are. I know Casey does a great job of that at Easter Jeep Safari, thinking about really special programs to make their sponsors come to life. So, Frank, I appreciate it. We're going to probably come back to you in some of the questions and definitely set the stage really well. And that, people should be encouraged, but you cannot go past those three fundamentals that you talked about and really understanding your value proposition, not just blanketing. I could see Andrew, nodding his head, on some points. So with that, thank you, Frank and Andrew.
All right. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. So yeah, as the only non-legend on the panel, I'm honored to be here. So pleasure to share the stage with Casey and Frank. I could listen to Frank talk all day, but a lot of what he said I think ties in nicely with what I'm going to talk about. And nothing says corporate sponsor like some PowerPoint slides, but there are some visual aids that I think will help talk through a little bit of this. So I'm gonna pop up this slide right here. So Emily, if you could just give me a thumbs up if you can see it. All right, great. So yeah, tell me you're from corporate without saying so. Well, PowerPoint will do that for you. So but really, I just want to kind of give a little context and background on what sponsors see when it comes to some of these requests on a day-to-day basis. I'll give you some quick kind of do's and don'ts, and then just some final thoughts and best practices. So, I think the first key here is that it's a really, really, really noisy space, right? Brands are inundated day in and day out with all kinds of requests, solicitations, whether you call it a sponsorship proposal or a partnership proposal or just straight up services offered, right? It's a lot. Super crowded environment from a total company standpoint. And the bigger the brand, right, the more this comes at them, right? So just within Yokohama, for example, right, we get hit, obviously at the brand level, and this would be, professional sports leagues, teams, collegiate teams, IMG, right? I mean, these consortiums of colleges, things like that. All kinds of venues, concert series, media companies, agencies, right? I mean, it's just sort of constant all day long. From a motorsport standpoint, right, it's on road, it's off road. It could be, sports car, open wheel, hill climb on the on-road side, off-road, obviously, right, desert, rock, short course, and then within that, right, it can be drivers, it can be teams, it can be classes, it can be venues, it can be series, right, and sort of everything in between, even manufacturer partners. So, don't read too much into the logos, right? This isn't the exhaustive list. and we do work with some of these, but you know, everybody that I put on here, we've had a conversation with. Every single person, every single logo that's been on here, just Yokohama has talked to us probably within the last 4 months, or at a minimum has reached out to us within the last 4 months. So again, the larger the company, the noisier it gets, right? Now, you know, I want to be clear, this doesn't mean that, you know, you as an individual team or an individual driver is, you know, up against, you know, like the Lakers, for example, right? It's not, well, we're going to choose the Lakers, and so we're not going to choose you. It's not really how it works. But the key is, right, you got to find a way to cut through the clutter, right? And unfortunately, you know, a lot of the bad ones that stand out, those are the ones that stand out, are the bad ones. Mostly because they're so bad that they're kind of funny, right? Like the last place NFL team that wants, you know, 8 figures to put your sign up in their stadium that nobody's going to see. Or it could be due to some, like, you know, egregious error, which I'll get to in a minute. But the good ones always kind of hit on a few things and have a few things in common. A lot of this is exactly what Frank talked about, right? So that's why I was kind of nodding along, right? You know, first and foremost, it's really specific, right? It gets to the point, right? What are you asking for? Why, when, where, what? Be very specific, right? They're also demonstrate that strategic fit, right? And this is, Frank talked about like doing the research on the brand. This is absolutely that, right? It is that underlying knowledge of the brand and how you can benefit them, how they can benefit from you as much as you can benefit from them, right? Where is that strategic fit for both of you for it to be a kind of win-win situation? Spelling out some added value, right? So these are the things, again, that Frank talked about, right? Like, you know, what is it that the brand is looking to do, and what beyond just winning on the track or winning on the course are you able to provide for that brand, right? Maybe there's, in addition to the series, it's your social media following, right? Or maybe it's you're going to be displaying at these shows, or maybe it's you have existing sponsors that you know that brand could somehow collaborate with and do something with that other sponsor that you may already have currently kind of in your stable. And then really they hit on an unmet need, right? And that, you know, again, Frank talked about like, what does a brand need, right? So every brand is looking for something. It's for some reason to do this. And whether it's selling more, enhancing that awareness, or exchanging that tech, right? What are the avenues that you can find your way into doing that, right? And if brand A, like, look, if brand A has the top 3 drivers locked up, where do you fit in, right? Maybe it's in a different class, right? Maybe it's or a different series where they don't have a presence in, or maybe brand B should be more of your target in that scenario, right? So it's really all about cutting through that clutter. And you know, I am struck by the fact that a lot of the solicitation that we get, many of these are these kind of cold calls and sort of first attempts, and their first goal is like get the meeting, right? And they'll offer lunch, and they'll offer coffee, and they'll offer happy hour, and it's really just like get you out from behind that computer and get to this face-to-face conversation. And I'm struck by the fact that, you know, in our space, and one of the areas that I don't think upcoming, especially up and coming, you know, kind of teams and drivers, I don't think they take advantage of this enough. Frank talked about it. Nate made a comment on the chat. You know, in off road, like, you know, brands that are engaged, we're coming to you. We are there. We are out. We are at events. We are at races. We are at shows. We're in the space. We're in the field. Come make that connection first, and then do a follow-up. Right? Follow-ups are so much better, so much more beneficial for you as somebody who's seeking sponsorship or partnership than a cold call, right? It's a lot easier to ignore a cold call than it is to ignore a follow-up. And when those cold calls are bad, they're like historically bad, right? Again, the one agency who produces the mass deck and sends it out to everybody, we have received so many, you know, dear so-and-so, not Andrew, but somebody else, right? I'm a big fan of XYZ tires, not Yokohama, another tire manufacturer. And that comes to me, and it goes to the lady in HR and the guy in IT and half my marketing department. And like, it's just spam, right? And that is the easiest thing to ignore, and the quickest thing, hands down, the quickest thing that will get deleted, right? And that's your first contact, right? Like I'll say details matter, right? It's kind of like a resume. Spelling is correct, right? Details and that kind of stuff, it matters. So, you know, that is probably the biggest takeaway, is if you can get to that relationship first, right? And build that relationship and do that interpersonal connection first, so much better than a cold call. So that's really kind of like number one on the do's and don'ts, is making that human kind of interpersonal connection first, right? Come by the truck, talk to the team, right? This is your in, right? And find somebody in a t-shirt and follow them around, make your introduction, shake their hand, tell them who you are. And if you find one of the service guys, like they'll be the quickest to point out, that's the guy you want to talk to sponsorship about, right? If you find somebody more on the somebody else, maybe a little bit more run a little bit more interference, but either way, right? Like make the connection and start small, right? Like be willing to start small, be willing to build from there. And starting small can be not only that first introduction piece, right? And kind of working your way in. Ultimately, you want to find who that decision maker is. Ultimately, you want to find, who is going to be an advocate for you within that brand or within that company. But you may need a ton of money. They may not be willing to offer that yet. They may not be able to offer that yet. They may start with product, right? Take something, start somewhere, start somehow. Knowing the brand and what they represent. Again, Frank talked about educating yourself on that brand. That is absolutely key, right? And the one thing I'll say on this, like there's a little nuance there, right? But brands have personalities and brands have personas just like you as individuals do, right? And some teams, your drivers fit better with some brands than other brands. And so know where that fit is and know how you can be a match, with that brand. Recognizing that not all brands are the same, right? You may have a competitor and an energy drink stroked them a check for whatever, a lot of money. That doesn't mean that that's the new going rate, right? That just means that that's what that person got, and hey, congrats to him. But brands are not the same, and that's certainly true within segments, but it's very true across segments, right? So I don't want to pick on the energy drink guys, right? But like, it's writing a check and doing some decals and doing some social, right? It's very different than some of the other guys that have to roll trucks, bring teams, right? Provide product, right? Product doesn't grow on trees, right? There's a lot of costs sort of below the surface of the water. So just because a brand is paying you or giving you something that you may deem as small relative to something else that you're getting or something else that somebody's getting, there's a lot below that surface of the water. The brand is into it for a lot more than you may see on your own. So just recognition that, not all brands are the same. And that's really, what is your unmet need, right? Like, how are you going to benefit from that and what the brand can provide, right? Part of that is self-awareness, right? Your unmet need cannot be, well, I need a trophy truck, right? But it can be, I need some funding, I need some product, I need a little bit more testing, I need somebody to help me pit, I need to work on my brand image, I need to be the top player within a team, right? I don't want to be the small fish in a big pond. I want to be the big fish in a small pond, right? It's like, what are you going to get, to take you to kind of that next step? So be realistic, right? Have that self-awareness, be realistic, know who you are. And to that end, start working on your brand now, right? They talked in the chat about, making those connections, even if you're not sponsored. That's true. Build your social media now, right? Be engaged, be out there. Do some different things that will help you bring some added value into the future, right? And, to that end, at a minimum, when you're approaching a brand, right, have that schedule finalized, right? What else can you do beyond the handful of races a year? But in addition to the handful of races, you're going to do this, you're going to do this, you're going to do this. But be specific, right? Brands are really going to have trouble supporting somebody that might do this or might do that, right? So having that specificity is key. And that's probably the first on my don't list, right? Which is, don't be vague, right? This list is a lot smaller, but don't be vague, right? Know what you're going to do, know when you're going to do it, know where you're going to do it, know how you're going to do it. Have your card done, right? Have all those things kind of, those boxes checked, before you really, really, truly engage with a brand in terms of that final, like, hey, I need this and I'm ready to go now. Don't passively connect, right? Again, no spam, kind of one and done emails. Again, the absolute easiest thing for a brand to ignore. So make that connection first and then follow up, right? And it'll be a lot harder for brands to ignore you if you do that. Don't threaten a brand, don't misrepresent yourself, don't burn bridges, right? These three are all kind of related, but I will say this, especially in off-road. This is true in all motorsports, but it's really true in off-road. this is a really tight-knit community, right? It's a really small community. And the same way that you as an individual or you as a team might talk to, your competitor that, yeah, while you're on the track, you're competing. Um, Brands have similar relationships, right? And so, if you don't think that Nate knows every single person on my team, you're wrong. He does, right? And they know him, right? And I'll just say that bad reputations are hard to shed, right? And remember, you are your own brand, and to the extent that you can represent that better, it's going to be better off for you. And then so finally, right, I'll just kind of leave you with some best practices, right, and kind of key takeaways. Again, I'll say it again. I feel like a broken record, but make those connections first, right? You can't be ignored if you make those connections. If you've shaken somebody's hand and maybe they've even told you to follow up, right? They can't ignore you at that point, right? They've given you a card. Hey, reach back out, right? Make those connections and be patient, right? It may take a couple of connections. It may take a few times. It may take a couple of connections with different people. Second, the details matter, right? The details in your proposal, the names, the dates, the schedules. Think of it like a resume or like a job interview, right? And if you do get the chance to meet, again, you need to read the room, right? You know, Not everything is the same, right? It's not a one size fits all, right? But in the event that you get an invite to a corporate office, put on some pants, put on a collared shirt, maybe ditch the hat, right? Like just read the room, right? I mean, the world is more and more casual, and I am first in line for that. Like, don't get me wrong, but sometimes at some of these companies, this isn't really the case at Yokohama, but some of these companies, the people that control the purse strings are maybe a little bit more traditional. And the last thing you want is for your sponsor contacts to have to explain the next day, hey, who was that kid in the shorts and the flat bill, right? Like you don't want to introduce any negativity to that brand if you don't have to, right? So I get it. Authenticity is key, and we want to keep that, and we want to do that, but sometimes a little deferential courtesy goes a long way. Reasons to believe, again, you want to show the success, you want to show your trajectory, but what else can you leverage, right? Are there other sponsors? Are there other events? Are there other things that you can do or get involved with or pull that brand into that maybe that brand is not seeing right now or not a part of just yet? What else can you leverage? Know the brand, right? Educate yourself. Again, this is another one Frank hit hard. Know the brand, what they need, and how you fit, and how the two of you fit together. Also know when does a brand do their budgeting, right? Brands that are on a calendar year typically budget, August, September, October for the following year. Brands that are on a fiscal year will typically budget December, January, February for the following fiscal year. So know when you can get in and they can plan around you rather than, oh, they're going to have to cut something or someone to support you, right? It's a lot easier if you can kind of get in on that brand floor. So know when they're budgeting and when they're doing their planning cycle for the following season or the following year. Be committed, be available, and above all, target a partnership above a sponsorship, right? So Frank talked about it's not just a decal on the car, right? It's not just stroking a check and walking away. Brands want to be engaged, and the extent that you can pull them in and leverage everything else that you have going on, it's going to be a lot more beneficial. It's going to last longer, and it's going to be a lot more rewarding in the long run if you can think of it within that mindset. So that's all I had. I'll turn it over to Emily and Casey from here. But the last thing is, brands want to tell their story, right? And they need you to help them tell that story. They need you to get them out from under the big, heavy, oh, this is a distant brand, and personalize them. So the extent that you can do that, everybody's going to benefit. So appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. You brought up something that I think is really important and people forget about, which is the timeline. Getting your information organized early and getting the information out to the potential sponsor early. Because a lot of times people wait till the end and it's already past budgeting cycle. So they may have some dollars remaining, but it may not be what you're looking for. And playing the long game. I think, it's really important to play the long game in all of this. And the bigger the company, and a lot of people have, I know some companies that they want to see any kind of proposal in June, because they start passing things around, and that's really early if you might not be racing till April of the next year.
Yeah, it's and it can be a challenge, right? Because sometimes some of these series, right, their schedules in flux and things like that. And we certainly know that there's a lot of starting and stopping and the off season these days seems like it's a heck of a lot shorter than it used to be. My team will tell you there is no off season, but that's definitely what it feels like. But yeah, to the extent that we can be as buttoned up and as well planned ahead of time, everybody benefits.
Yeah. All right. Hey, thank you so much. And thanks to Yokohama. But both BFG and Yokohama are great partners of Ormhoff, and we really appreciate it. And the Nate Hunt, Brad Lovell are both putting out some really great information out on the chat. So I encourage you to read what both of them have written in this time. Um, and with that, we're going to get to Casey and then open it up to some more questions. So, Casey.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, excited to be here. Sorry, I did lose my voice, so I'm struggling on talking a little bit, but I think everything Frank and Andrew said are spot on. I could get into my past a little bit. Wanted to race short course ever since I was a little kid, and with Core coming out to California from being a Midwest sport, um, my random story for getting into racing was I went out to dinner with my dad and Detroit Locker at the time, which is Eaton Company, and they were in California for pitching Nissan on a concept car for SEMA to put inside their booth. This is 2005. And at that time, they had a bunch of ideas. And anyways, I was telling them at dinner, as I went with my dad right out of high school, man, if I ever got the chance to build a cool concept car, I would build a short course truck and showcase a real, OEM vehicle that looks like a short course truck. Anyways, the next day they went to their meeting and Nissan didn't like their concepts and they threw out my idea. And with that, they ended up accepting the idea of using a short course truck for their launch of the new 2006 Frontier, which was a complete new redesign. And I ended up building the first ever or the first OEM Nissan Frontier in America. And it was, this whole concept of a short course truck. I had never raced. I just knew what it needed to look like as we live in California, and pre-runners that are normally lifted is the cool thing. This was a lower truck with big tires. And during my presentation at SEMA to the Nissan board explaining my concept and why I felt everything tied in well, I ended up getting to meet the motorsport director for Nissan, whose name was Ron at the time. And he just said, "Hey, man, I hear you want to go racing. I love your story. I love what you've created here." And literally, I mean, now this is over 20 years ago. I mean, he basically allowed me to say, "Hey, we're going to cover more than 50% of the cost of you to go racing. If you want to go, you just need to come up with the other 50%." And that was the intro to learning how to start selling. And I had the Nissan backing. And from there, I actually went out, which is crazy now, but worked a deal with Nitto Tires and actually took a year to figure it out. But I got a deal with Nitto. They paid, and I was under the Art Schmidt team as a factory racer my first year racing. And it didn't come from racing. I had no results. I didn't do anything other than I could talk, and I could talk good. And it was super fun. I got a great experience racing for Art Schmidt. We had some podiums in our first year. We ended up winning some races our second year. And yeah, it was a really crazy time. I was involved with Nissan at a corporate level. So I had this unique tie of learning from a corporate standpoint my first year. But a couple years later, Nissan went through some changes with a CEO change, and they completely removed themselves from motorsports. And when that happened, the first time, I just put a Ford body on my truck, went and won a championship. Got blessed on winning a lot of events and got sponsored by Monster Energy. which didn't come from a proposal. I'll tell you that story next. But basically, from there, a year later, Nissan came back, dabbled with some money, paid some money again, thought they were going to get back into racing, and then decided it wasn't going to work. They ended up pulling out of all their sponsorship. And I said, screw this. I'm done with OEMs. It's too hard. If they come in with a lot of money, if they come in, like Andrew said, you come in with a lot of money, it's hard to get that over and over again. I was like, well, shoot, if I can get a small dollar value from 20 people, I'd rather maintain 20 friends than one big friend that can go away tomorrow. So I rented a Jeep Wrangler. I drove to a boat shop. I had them pull a mold off a rented Jeep. I made a Jeep mold. And I said, well, if anything, I'm going to start with a Jeep because my dad owns Curry Enterprises. I'm just going to help sell Jeep parts. And the story of where I became this small niche, which Frank talked about early on, was finding your niche. I literally only had a Jeep deal because Nissan dropped out. I was bummed on Nissan. At that point, I was bummed on all OEMs. So I was like, I'll just go after helping my dad's company and I'll sell Jeep parts. And from that moment, in the first year, I went to having more sponsors than I ever had because all of a sudden I was really at that time the only Jeep on TV. And if you look back in 2011, 12, 13, Jeeps were one of the most popular vehicles for being aftermarket accessorized. But on TV was Ford F-150s and Chevy Silverados. But here Jeep was this niche that no one was talking about. So I created a unique tie for everything that I had going on. With that, I ended up building a lot of cool Jeeps, getting involved with SEMA projects, and really that took off my career from then. The passion for off-road fell back to my family business, which an experience that I wanted to think that a lot of people in off-road racing come from money or have money. It's not free. We all know that. And to get a start, it takes money. I think as a child that has blessed with my dad, who is in the business of an entrepreneur and owning a business, I leverage my dad's company and not having my dad write any checks because a unique part is my dad has two brothers that aren't just going to write me a check. That's just how it goes. Uh, if I'm going to get paid, my cousin's got to get paid, and so does my brother. But what I did do over the years, and I think a lot of people could look at this differently, was, well, hey, perfect example. My dad uses Motive Gears every single day in his business. If Motive Gear gave me 500 sets of gears, that could be 20, 30, $40,000. Well, I mean, I couldn't use that in my race program over the next 20 years. But what I could do is sell that to my dad at a discounted rate, making it cheaper for my dad. And now if he's going to be happy with it, and he'll write me a check for the remaining balance. So now Motive's giving away free product. I'm selling it to my dad at a discounted price, and my dad's giving me money. And in reality, I never really got paid by Curry, but a lot of Curry's vendors I went out and utilized, and I created partnerships. These partnerships were friends because just like any good businessman, my dad is friends with all of his vendors. And I think that's where having these customer, vendor relationships, it's important. And I think that, like Frank and Andrew said, relationships are born in all different areas. And I think that, I utilize partnerships differently. I utilize brands that Curry uses every single day. I mean, if I was in the construction business, I do the same thing. If I was in the electrical business, I do the same thing. If I was in the boating business, and for myself, I used everything around relationships and what these companies were missing. I felt that it's very difficult to get some of these brands to stroke a multi-$100,000 check. And I think, utilizing partnerships where, giving away product and even giving away product at a bigger discount where it makes sense to them, but being able to sell it to somebody else, is just leveraging relationships. And I don't know. I have a crazy way of doing it. I truly think that our sport is based off these unique relationships, and yeah, I hustled it in many different ways, and I still do today. Uh, back to Monster Energy, which is I'm blessed with. I've been with them for 20 years. Um, I tried for many years to get on board with them, and just the timing and results weren't working out. And my story was I went to the last race I was ever going to race. It was in 2009 or 2008. I went to the last race I was ever going to race. The you know industry as a whole was not in a good place. The world was not in a good place. The economy was getting ready for the fall in 2009, and basically my dad and I said, "Hey, we're done racing. We'll go to one last race." It's crazy that Frank's on. The only money that I was getting paid was by BFG, and it was just getting to the point where, actually Nate was on the call too, or is on the call, but they were my only supporter. Here we are. It was a tough time. Nate and Frank with BFG were paying, but it wasn't enough to go the full year. I went to Texas with no branding on the truck. The truck was 100% black. Had BFG over the front tire, had Curry on it, and Motive Gear, which were these sponsors that I'd leveraged, but it just wasn't enough to run full time. Uh, at the time, Mitch Covington, who now is one of the director and in a super high role at Monster Energy, was running Torque, and Torque was owned by Monster. And here I went to the last race I ever was going to race, and I won. And the truck was all black, and literally Mark Hall and Rodney were like, "Well, shoot, who's this kid that just went out and won? His truck is black. He's got no sponsors. We should call him up and see what they want to do." And the rest is history. It's unique, but at the same time, I stuck my neck on the line, and you know, being able to see a company watch me perform where results do matter, you have to be able to perform um, and perform under pressure. It allowed for almost a 20-year relationship at this time, and it's crazy because now in 2026 things are changed. I do 35 to 40 events a year. Uh, I travel a lot. I try to travel on weekends. I got two kids at home. I mean, here's Emily Miller's on the call, and I mean, shoot, I went out and put my wife inside of a Jeep that I got given from Jeep. I made her drive thousands of miles with a girl that she didn't know, because in my mind I could sell Jeep on let's promote women racing, and I felt there was a niche, and turned out to be a great experience for my wife, and we had a great time. I had a lot of brands that wanted to do more of it, and it's too much for me because I ended up having to watch my kids for a week, which was that's a crazy job in itself. But my wife had the experience of getting to go race, and we tied it with my media guy at the time. Emily allowed him to go and document, film, create a story out of it. We did all this. On her own dime. I wanted to create a story. I knew my wife wasn't going to go win, right? There's girls like Nina that are just dominant and so understanding of racing that I try to create a story of, hey, this is a wife that took the time to go to Emily's courses, and she's going to learn how to drive and ship the vehicle with the four-wheel drive and navigate and work as a team. And we're going to tell the story and try to make more people fall in love with off-road racing and off-road. And doesn't mean you have to be the best, but with the right people, you can have fun. And I think because of that, the following year and the year after in the Rebel Rally was multiple women from the industry that went because of Allie's story. And like, to me, that's empowering, showing that this industry is full of connections and just getting the phone calls of trying to tie things together. And with that, there's a lot of great people in this industry. Following up on that, in 2026, I go to 35 to 40 events a year. I try to host all sponsors at different levels. King of the Hammers. I feed between 50 and 75 people a meal 3 times a day for 12 days. I have helicopters. We have UTVs. I have Jeeps. I give experiences to sales reps, vendors, customers, sponsors. I try to make it an experience, and I try to show people the world that we live in and why it's so impactful. We go to events with the biggest TV packages. I try to leverage my partnerships to be on these shows, and besides that, trying to have my own YouTube social media platforms to tie these sponsors in by having my niche product, which is Jeep, and all the aftermarket partners, why their product is so great and why it needs to be on everyone's Jeep in the world. And by telling the story as I race on all these products, I'm a true believer in all the products that I run on my race vehicles. But I also go Jeeping all the time, and my wife drives a Jeep every day, and it's lifted. I'm not going to put my kids in the back of a Jeep with piece of crap parts on it to try to make a dollar. It's not safe. I would never put my kids or my wife in danger to make a dollar. So I truly believe in all the brands that I support. And when it comes to a social media DM asking how good are these shocks, how good are these tires, how good are these wheels, to me it's this is how good they are. I'm running them every day on the hardest trails in the world, but I'm also having my wife drive every day with my kids in the car down the freeway, and I wouldn't have any other way. So for me, Andrew made a good point of, you got to understand the product, you got to understand what you're selling, but you got to believe in it. Because if you don't believe in it, I see companies come and go. We all do. And for myself, I'm just not a fan in today's age of making that quick dollar, but then it goes away and now you can't get a dollar back. And I'm also not a fan of, hey, this company came in, I sold a title sponsor for $5,000, when in reality, at the end of the year, if you did everything right, at the end of the year, you're going to have to go back to and go like, I can't do that again because I sold it for a dollar value that in reality, it actually doesn't make any sense, right? If to me, there's so much of that going on, and there's a way around it that you can do it so much better, that if you want to leverage a deal where the sponsor and the company understand that we're going to get a deal, we're going to showcase why this deal is important. At the end of the year, Casey's going to do it for this low cost, but knowing that if it works, we're going to have to pay this amount of money, because that's where I think the tie is. And I think there's a lot of people that sell it for the quick bang for the buck. They think that all of a sudden, if they do a great job, they're going to get more money. Well, look, if you promise them $5,000 and these deliverables, and at the end of the year, you did exactly what they said, well, shoot, let's do the same thing for the same amount of dollar value. And I feel that people need to step back and realize that it's not going to help you. It's not going to help the sport. And I really feel that if everybody can work together with these brands and figure out the long-term goals, the short-term goals, what can we do together now? I think that we can get a lot more out of it. And, we are in a powerful industry where OEMs are not as powerful as the aftermarket. There's more money spent on aftermarket and all off-road than the OEMs as a whole. And, I'm very blessed. I'm sponsored by Jeep. I'm also sponsored by Polaris Razor. I have great relationships with them. But the tools that they give and the aftermarket tools that we have after, off-road as a whole has so much potential with the aftermarket, that there is so much room for growth. There's so many opportunities with so many brands. They just need the pieces tied correctly. And the aftermarket, look, for me, if your dad owns a business, which a lot of dads do, utilize the tools and resources in their industry to figure out how you can stoke out some of their vendors, stoke out some of their people, stoke out some of their customers. Heck, man, if I own a construction company, or my dad did, and he had some top tier vendors or even some customers, I'd bring them out to the Hammers and put them a ride in my own race car and tell them, let's put a logo on the side and now show some of your people how cool this sport really is. Because we all know that that branding on the side of the vehicle might not do anything, but if they didn't have to pay a lot because they just gave a discount on a job or a discount on some, supplies for a job, there's a chance that these contractors could spend a lot of money in off-road for the tie-in of, hey, this was awesome, and I got to go to Baja 1000 and fly into Cabo and drink margaritas and watch my trophy truck come to the finish line, and it was the best experience of my life. There's a lot of that. I mean, Frank knows with Wide Open Baja that Wide Open Baja is another great experience of taking these customers and vendors out and showing them how fun it is and how tying and engaging all these people together are. So for me, I don't want to ramble, but who I am and what I am for the sport is I'm just a crazy kid who's over 40 now with kids of my own. The reason I keep doing it is my kids love it, which I'm trying super hard to get them into golf, and all they want to drive is Polaris Razors. And it's a bad bad deal I'm trying to get out of. But, where I'm at is they love it. I love it. And, I want to see the sport grow, and having people like Andrew and Frank and Nate showing the care for the sport. We need to see it grow. And yeah, man, getting more outside sponsors involved by tying connections in that don't involve money. I'd love to see more of it. So thank
Yeah.
you.
Thanks, Casey. I mean, what's great is obviously you can see the passion that you have. And the other thing, it ties back into something that Brad said earlier on the chat, is that to get investment, you also have to invest yourself. Why should somebody invest in you if you're not making some of that personal investment and doing what you need to do to get out there? And you have done a great job of that. How do you have the energy to do 35 plus events and to actually keep the enthusiasm to stay creative? Because, even though you have more of that sponsorship history built up, you still stay really creative.
Take the plug. I mean, I drink a lot of Monster Energy. Now, I truly love what I do. I mean, I'm very blessed. The great thing for me is that off-road is a community between friends and family. If you don't know, my dad and my uncles, started a company with my grandfather that is truly about what we do. I was telling my dad just the other day, the hardest part about life is the day that I'm going to quit racing so that I can focus on my kids, which is far, but the hard part is going to the events and doing what we do. My grandpa did it. If my grandpa was here right now, he'd be doing 20 events a year. My dad, at a 35 events I do, I bet you my dad's still going to 25 of them with me. It's just, as a family, it's what we've loved, and it's what I've always done. And, you know, I don't think that racing is doing it to me, but I think that I truly love the community around racing. And it's not even that. I mean, shoot, I was just at a bass fishing tournament, and Andrew's team was there with Yokohama, and some of their racers are doing a great job bringing Ultra 4 cars and short course trucks to fishing tournaments. And to me, it's great seeing, the off-road community expanding, because one thing we all know is we live in a super small bubble. And when you get outside of that bubble, people just don't know. And if we can show more people off-road, more people are going to fall in love with it, because there's nothing not to love about off-road racing and the off-road community.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point, is that people are not just off-road racers or just road racers or just fishermen. People do a lot of different things, and I think cross promoting is really important. And I think getting creative is very important. Um, Casey, thank you so much. We're going to open this up to more questions. I want to go back through the chat. I do want to bring up a couple of things as we were, working on this topic. Just a reminder to everyone, the importance of the follow-up. And once you have the sponsorship, is that it doesn't stop there. And the team here talked about it, but also the actual visual follow-up that you can send, and do that regularly when you can, and make it easy for the person who actually went to bat for you, that they can pass your pass your update around the office. That you're not just getting on a call and telling them things and assuming they're going to write it down and create your like your report for you. Make it easy on the company to see what you've done and then to say yes again. And, we have talked to various companies that do sponsor, and they say the number one problem that they see is once they sponsor someone, they kind of disappear. And it's so disheartening to them. And, if any of you on any of the panelists want to speak to that, I think that would be important.
Yeah, I'll speak to that, right? So I do think that not every company is the same, right? So I'll speak on Yokohama's behalf, but we want to be engaged, right? We like I said before, right? We have our teams that are out there. We're at every event. We're at short course. We're in the desert. We're on rock events, right? We rally, right? I mean, we're all over the place. So just writing that check or sending those tires and then walking away, there's no benefit, to the manufacturer, to the company or the brand on that side, right? Like the brand is always wants, what else can we do? What's the next thing, right? And that's the part where I was talking about earlier, where be willing to start small and it will grow, right? It can grow. And to Casey's point, like I totally get it, right? Like don't undersell yourself as somebody who's looking for sponsorship. If don't sell the title package for less than it's worth. And maybe the brand is okay not having the title package, right? Like maybe the brand is okay because the brand knows what they can afford or what they can spend or what the value is to the brand in that given year. And getting away from the title might be just fine, right? And then over time, right, like that might swell and grow as all these other things and all these other avenues and all these other sort of connections are made. But that's the key, is keeping that up. And, again, my last point about, pursue a partnership, not a sponsorship. I think that's what you're talking about in a nutshell.
Hmm. Yeah, I think Brad just wrote something really helpful. He said, after races, he supplied pictures in an article from every event that they did. I also said, I get other uh, Vaughn getting an RTR, they always send, I always see their race reports coming out, etc. And sometimes people think that those things aren't being noticed, but they are, I think, in the back of people's minds. Even if it's not used, it's not picked up. Don't assume that everyone's just watching you on your social media feed and knows exactly what you're up to. And, make it easy on people like, Andrew, make the job as easy as possible, you know. Uh,
Sure.
and Casey, you just, um, oh, Chris Collard, yeah, Casey nailed it. Start by working with products you believe in, spend your personal funds on use, build potential relationships. And this is from Chris Collard, who is a journalist, and he is also on the board of Wormhoff and an inductee. Um, you know, Obviously, a big theme of today is relationship, relationship, relationship. And it's true. You guys are out there, you're at the events. you know um, it's not easy to put yourself out there, but I think a message would be, be bold but also be realistic. Nate made that comment earlier. Be realistic about the ask. um, Jeff, who's also on the board, is any follow-up is an excuse to sell yourself. If you get a no, you should still find a reason to follow up. I think that's good. I also think you could, anybody and any panelist, address the what happens when people don't return your call. I think some people take offense to it and almost take it as a personal affront, not realizing how many pitches someone might get a week, or maybe the team's smaller than other teams in terms of processing those. If you want to give any kind of feedback on what to do when you get when there's silence.
I'll jump in here real quick because I've gotten a lot of no's over the years. And usually when I got a no, we're not interested. Um, I wanted to find out why.
Mhm.
Why are they not interested? Is it because I missed their budgeting period? Is it because what I was selling, they didn't see how it was going to benefit them? So you want to find out why. And if you're just not getting an answer via a telephone call, the first thing I would think is then you haven't built a strong enough relationship or uh, create an interest from them. So you need to go back and create that interest. Okay. So if I'm looking for a tire sponsorship, okay, and I sent that to Nate or to Andrew, and I can't even get them to respond to tell me no. They just go blank. Okay. I'm going to then send an email or a note, maybe by mail, maybe uh, by text, not sure, but I'm going to send them something and say, I'm really sorry. I think I might have really missed the boat here. I probably upset you. I didn't mean to do so. Could I get 5 minutes of your time when it's convenient with you? And I can accept a no, but I need to understand a little bit more about how I missed your goals or missed your objectives or why you have no interest. And I'm a big boy, so you're not going to hurt my feelings. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be transparent, and I'm going to let them know that you can tell me no, but you also got to tell me why. Otherwise, I probably won't leave you alone. So if you want to get rid of me, here's an opportunity to get rid of me or educate me.
Yeah. And Casey, what I have a feeling you don't necessarily take no. You probably figure out a way to get to yes.
No, there's lots of no's in life. It's it's learning how to. My whole thing is learning how to sleep on it because once you sleep on a no, you can figure out a way to get twisted better. But there's always ways to strategize. I mean, in life, sometimes no's are some of the best blessings ever that you just got to realize how to strategize it because sometimes some of the best partnerships come from times of, you thought you had the dream deal and in reality there could be something better somewhere else. Not saying, look, doing something wrong and then going somewhere else, you ain't going to do better. But if a CEO change comes in and they want to go to tennis instead of off road, there's nothing you're going to do to ever sell that CEO on off road if his daughter loves tennis and he loves tennis.
Yeah,
Well,
that
the other thing is, if you're not getting an answer, you may not have the right person.
That's what I was going to say. There's a distinct difference between no answer and no, right?
That
And
is
and in
true.
either case, right, you may
Yes.
just be talking to the wrong person, right? So finding
Yes.
that back to the research on the company and in this day and age, like it's a lot easier now to find out sort of who's who in the zoo at some of these companies with LinkedIn and Instagram, and then of course the events, right? Like make those contacts somehow and make sure that you're talking to the right person, or at least that you can get an advocate inside of the building. And to your earlier point, Frank, like if you have that advocate inside the building, that's now your contact. And hey, help me. Like, where do we need to go? What do we need to do next? Right? There's all kinds of opportunities there.
yeah,
Yeah,
Dave.
and you know what? To expand on that, Andrew, you said something super, super important. And I don't know if other people caught this or not when we were talking about building a relationship and getting to know the brand and so on and so forth. If I can't get to Andrew, I might still show up at events and be underneath his tractor trailer, and I might be meeting his support people and whoever's coming out to cover the event. And I may start at the ground level building a relationship so that one day I will have made a big enough impact on those people that they're going to be mentioning it to Andrew, and then I will be able to talk to him.
Yeah, good point. And I do have one question about that. How much do you recommend people using LinkedIn?
Me personally, I'm not a huge, that's the more and more it's like everybody's just trying to sell you something, right? So again, I mean that's kind of taking on that cold call approach that I was talking about earlier. I will say, right, a proposal from somebody who's in the space and using LinkedIn, and if there's no possible way to get out to an event, that's a lot more interested than some agency trying to sell something somewhere else, that's a little bit, more distant. But it's an avenue. I wouldn't lean on it heavily. I would use it as maybe one of the later resorts. But again, I'll say it again. I think the absolute best way about it, right, is to be on site and to be out there at events. And like I said before, so many of these cold calls try so hard to get you out from behind the computer and out from behind the laptop and just have that face to face. And in this world, in this community, you have that to start with, right? Like that ability is there. We're there. Show up. Come on out.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and Nate said the same thing. I do want to say that we ended up with a great partner out of industry from LinkedIn, but we're also active in LinkedIn.
Sure.
And we have a lot of people in the business, and kind of professional world, but it's different. It's just everybody has a different way. So I think it's to the point of knowing the audience and doing the research, knowing who's where. And if you're going to use a platform, use it authentically. We didn't just use it to go after someone. We, engage with it. And we're gonna bring up Jen Hellstrom has a question, the absolute do not do when asking for sponsorship. So I want you guys to think about that. But I do want at least someone to address the kind of priority or importance of social media right now, just from your perspective of like in the priority level of social media. Where does that factor into how you review sponsorship opportunities?
So, I mean, I'll talk from a brand perspective. Specifically in off-road, it's important, right? Because it is still relatively niche in terms of, you don't turn on the TV on every Saturday and see it running, right? So it's still like you have to go kind of seek it out. That being said, right, the world is changing. Casey talked about his YouTube channel. We know now for sure, right? Like we're seeing a lot of these new streaming services and things like that coming online and like actually, showcasing some of these races and giving that access, which was really, really hard to get before. So I actually think this is a really prime time for that of sort of expanding that reach, which, Frank talked about one of the three things the company looks for, right? Is that awareness. Well, reach and frequency of reach, those are the two key elements for that, right? So, but to the extent that you're younger and you're up and coming, right, and you need to show something, and maybe you don't have all those race wins, and maybe you don't have that, it's another arrow in the quiver, right? It's another thing. It's not the only thing. But for companies back to like wanting to tell their story, being able to co-create content and then push it out across multiple platforms, not only the company's platform, but that individual platform and reaching their audience, right? That's again that sort of expansion of reach. And I'll just quickly hit. I know Jen's asked this question. What is the absolute do not do? I would say don't misrepresent yourself, right? Don't say you're going to do something and then don't do it. Don't falsify your records or your claims or your accolades or whatever you think you may have done. And like I said before, it's a small world, right? Don't burn those bridges. Casey brought up a great example, right? The guy who's high up at Monster now, right? He was running Torque before, right? These people can change whether or not you like them or not, or whether or not you've had a good. They can change and they can end up in a position of influence somewhere else that may affect you somewhere else. So small community, be careful.
Yeah. Okay, do not do. What is the number one golden rule do not do? And Nate put a good one, which is don't tell me what the company I work for needs or needs to do.
I would say you're spinning your wheels if you're approaching a company and you don't know anything about the company or what they do. I mean, it I don't even know where someone would think that that's okay to do. And so it's going to be a waste of time. It's probably going to be uh, it's going to work out to be something where they're never going to want to talk to you, especially if you're asking for something silly. But you need to do not approach a company until you know a little bit about them and know who you're talking to. Otherwise, you're spinning your wheels.
Yeah.
I agree.
Casey, from the athlete side, and Brad, if you want to chime in on the chat, the do not do, all caps.
Yeah, for me, I don't, it's hard to say that one because there's so many do not do's. I do agree with Nate Hunt, though. You don't ever go to a company and tell them to change the way they're doing their business. They didn't get into that position by not doing what they were doing.
Yeah. I like what he also said. Don't tell me how great you were in the 80s. Tell me how you can help me now. That's a good one. Um, really great panel today. We've gone over time. Um, uh, a couple more things are coming in. It's like applying for a job. They're going to check your references. That's a good point. I also think that people need to remember it's a job. Sometimes people want to go racing and they just want money to go racing, but sponsorship is a job. And it is a marketing partnership, or it is based on those three fundamentals of what they're looking for. It is a job. And the way you're going to, first of all, you have to audition for the job. You have to try out for the job, apply for it. But it can take some time. But you need to be great at the job to get more sponsorship. You can't just be okay, unless you're just maybe winning everything. And if you guys want to pipe in and say, no, that's not true, but um, if you're not winning everything, you really need to be great at the job. And if we want to end on any notes about professionalism. Um, Anybody wants to chime in on professionalism, or any words of advice?
Yeah, I mean, so I touched on it a little bit just about that. Like, if you do get a meeting at the corporate office, read the room, right, and put on some pants and take the hat off, and just if the meeting's at a shop, okay, that's different, right? I understand it, but you got to read the room because back to you never know who's going to walk by or who you're going to bump into the hallway, and sometimes for some companies, those people that are influential or maybe a little bit more traditional. And to your point about it being a job, yeah, you have to do the work. And back to the social media piece, it's a lever. It's not the only lever, but it's beyond, well, look how many followers I have, right? Companies want to know, and I think Frank mentioned this earlier, right? And Casey probably knows it better than anybody, right? But like, it's the engagement. What is your audience like? How engaged is your audience with you? What are they going to listen to you? Those kind of things. And companies will use third parties to help them kind of weed through that, right? And knowing what that company uses and knowing how you can activate on that platform and knowing how you can sort of move up your metrics in that platform, I think will only suit to benefit you. And I think that's all part of being professional beyond just the cockpit or the garage, right? Like that's the job of it outside of the track, so to speak.
Yeah, that's great. Anyone else as an athlete?
Yeah, no, I think Andrew basically said it right. He is spot on with just knowing who you're, the reading of the room. I have gone into a tremendous amount of opportunity where I have everything laid out on a piece of paper of exactly what I'm going to sell. And by the time you sit down and before the meeting starts, you talk to two people in the room while there's two more people waiting to come in the room and literally throw everything I was going to say away just by feeling the vibe of an assistant or the boss of the person coming in the room, of just getting an understanding of the room. Of, it's happened way more times than not that you read the room and throw everything you have out the door and just go off of what the company wants rather than what you're going to tell them.
Yeah, and be authentic, right?
Always got to be
Absolutely.
true to yourself.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, thank you so much. And Frank, thank you for kicking it off and teeing the whole overview up for everyone. Andrew, thank you for taking all this time and expertise. And Casey, Brad, really appreciate you being on. And Nate had to just log off, but really appreciate it. Like I said, you're going to be able to watch this again. It will be on Ormhoff on the website. And we really wish everyone the best of luck in the journey of sponsorship and really appreciate it. So, on behalf of Wormhoff, thank you, everyone. And we will see you again for the next one.
Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate it.